Good evening, and welcome to another Mothmanpodcast. I'm here with Darrell the Mothman, and I am Amanda the Medium. Tonight we're going to be talking about a really interesting topic. We're going to be talking to you about shadow people. Stay tuned and listen to our podcast on the shadow people.
Good evening, Amanda. Good evening, Amanda.
Good evening, Darrell. How are you?
I'm doing well. If I get the microphone going here for me. In the Wikipedia states that a shadow person is a perception of a patch of shadow as a living humanoid figure, particularly as interpreted by beliefs in the paranormal and supernatural as the presence of a spirit or other entity. So I guess what they're trying to say there is the shadow people is actually a form of paranormal ghost. Is that what they're trying to say?
Yeah, you might call it a form of paranormal ghost if you use the term ghost very loosely. Probably more some kind of paranormal entity, because the Native Americans used to call them the discarnate ones, meaning that they're people who have never had a physical form. They've never had a body. They've never been human. So they're a different sort of entity.
So, yeah, I've just been doing a little research on my own about this, and, there's some questions. Are they ghosts? Are they interdimensional travelers? Are they time travelers? Or something else? We just don't really know what shadow people are.
We don't.
But, most people have said, I was sitting comfortably on a sofa reading the latest issue of my current magazine, and in the dim light, when movement across the room caught my attention, it seemed dark and shadowy, but there was nothing there. You enter into your reading, and a moment later, there it is again. So that's the way most people describe seeing a shadow person. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we've discussed before that shadow people draw off of negative energy. Is that correct?
Yeah, that seems to be what's happening. And that we get mostly from accounts of people who have come into contact with these entities. They say that they had a sudden fear when they saw them, and that then they felt like the entity was feeding off of their fear. I don't know what that would feel like, but that's always the feeling that they're feeding off of the fear and the negativity that's going on in the person's home or in the person's life or in that moment when they meet the shadow person.
Well, the shadow people have been sketched on the walls, of caves. Mm-hmm. It goes back to the beginning of history. People have seen things, like I said before, what is it, time travel? Is it another dimension traveling through?
Yeah.
Most scientists and skeptics and mainstreams just say that it's our overactive imagination. Mm-hmm. So, I guess there's quite a few thoughts on this subject. My feeling is that, this has been seen throughout history. Is this something we fed off by reading, or is it something we've fed our imaginations with by reading, or is it something that really happens and it just keeps repeating itself over and over and over again because these entities keep entering into our current domain or area. If you're a skeptic now, I'm going to say the mind's playing tricks on you.
Yeah.
Lack of sleep, that sort of thing that might cause that.
Yeah, a lot of people argue that's what it's from. It does seem to be more mainstream now to discuss the shadow people, but like you said, this is not a recent development in what people are experiencing. Descriptions of the shadow people go back at least to the 1100s with the Native Americans. They have history where the shadow people were definitely encountered and became a part of their histories. And that's a history in multiple different tribes that were unrelated. So it was experienced for whatever reason in North America in the 1100s by different tribes who didn't have contact with each other. And it's only now, much later in history that they have discussed with each other, and they have sort of come up with, I guess, like a firm description of what it is and what their belief on it is.
Well, when we discuss ghosts, we always talk about a white vapor
Mm-hmm.
and a clear entity.
Right.
A form that can sometimes be seen and made out as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about shadow people, we never see a form. We never see it developing into an entity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you're saying that this is a negative spirits, negative.
Excuse me. It's not a ghost, but it does have a definite form. It has the form of what we call humanoid. So it has, head, arms, legs, but it doesn't have any features. There's no clothing. There's no face. It's just a black mass.
Right. So, when we talk to individuals who have apparently seen a spiritual ghost, they can always give us a facial features, like our investigation on Old Salisbury Road. The little girl appears as a whole form,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't see that in the when we're talking about the shadow people. What about, even when we're talking about out-of-body experiences, we never talk about seeing the shadow person. I think it's been depicted in movies that always like in the movie Ghost,
Mm-hmm.
the shadow person appears and drags the person to to the Badlands, to
Right.
hell. So that we've, associated with the shadow person, the evil spirits. But, I haven't looked into it enough to know anything about the shadow people, because I've always found that that's the dark side of the paranormal. And dealing with the dark side of the paranormal is a little bit
Correct.
more dangerous.
I
and
totally
dealing
agree
with
you.
the ghost part, the person where we talk. Apparently our phones are ringing in the background.
And this is not something like I totally agree with you. Like, I stay away from the demonic. I stay away from the more negative side of the paranormal. The reason I started looking into shadow people was because of my friend who has one in her apartment. And she does have a 12-year-old son. There has been strife between her and her ex-husband now. And so she is still experiencing this shadowy figure, and she's had a lot of fear over it. And it seems to live in the bathroom. And I thought that was strange until I was listening to a podcast on shadow, on shadow people, where it said that they tend to live in bathrooms and closets, which I find really unusual. Is that a portal for them? Are they coming and going interdimensionally through the bathrooms and closets for some reason? I have no idea. There's more questions than answers when it comes to shadow people. There's a lot of description, but not a lot of answers as to why.
Well, a lot of research has showed that this phenomenon of the shadow person are interdimensional beings or aliens that could time travel. And some believe demons are responsible for all those disturbing phenomena. And the demons are actually aliens. I guess you could...
Which is an interesting theory.
Right. I guess the bottom line to this whole conversation is we don't know what it is.
No.
We'll never know what it is. It's one of those things that we've talked about before where our science has not caught up with the actual phenomena that's happening around us every day. What is is this something, if somebody has an encounter with a shadow person, is that something that we might need to get your dad in to try to drive that person out of the house?
I think that it's going to take more than sage to get rid of a shadow person, and it's going to take more with as a medium with ghosts or spirits. You can actually talk to ghosts and spirits because they have been human, and you can just, sometimes it's as easy as saying you need to go to the light, and it makes sense. With shadow people, we don't understand, and they are so malevolent, evil, that even the lady Heidi Hollis, who wrote the definitive book on the shadow people in 2001, even she says that one of the only ways to get rid of them is to use the name of Jesus to banish them. And she believes that she's capable of doing that. But, I mean, for me, I wouldn't even want to mess with it. I would call in my dad. I would definitely have him come over. And what he does is, he does a room by room, commanding things to leave in the name of Christ. And so I think that would be the only way to take care of it, honestly.
So with the, I'm assuming shadow people scare you?
I don't want to run into one. They try to scare you. As I've told my friends, there's not a lot that scares me anymore, and I'm not tempting fate or negative entities to try to scare me. But shadow people try to frighten you. So they're going to come after you. They're going to stand over you in the middle of the night. They're going to do whatever they have to do in order to create that fear. And you said before they thrive, they grow off of the fear. Absolutely. They feed off of it.
So that's where they get their energy from, is the fear. So if a person sees a shadow person and then shows no fear, then it's a good chance that shadow person will
probably
move on.
Leave. Here's an interesting thing, though, Darrell. When people discuss shadow people, they tend to then see a shadow person. So I'm afraid that both of us are going to have to watch out.
Well, he's going to have a really big gun to scare me.
I know, right? I think both of us are pretty...
Well, we're both pretty open-minded.
Yeah.
Here again, we talk about all these things. It doesn't necessarily mean we believe in everything we talk about.
Absolutely.
But we definitely know there's something out there that's not right, and there's something out there that needs to be discussed, and there's something out there that we might could help you with. And as investigators, we need you to come forward, the public, to come forth and give us your stories, ask for our help, and we will be very open-minded going into the investigation. We're not coming there to prove you right or wrong. We're just coming there to prove the facts that exist, and we can go from there. But we need you guys to meaning the public to come forth and contact us on at Mothmanpodcast@gmail.com and send your stories. Amanda has asked for drawings of anything that you might have seen and circumstances around those drawings. What led up to it? Were you just sitting reading a book and you saw something pass in front of you, and then you look the other way, and next thing you know, it passes in front of you again? That sort of thing. The time of the day. And we will take that investigation and run with it. We will find out if there is a negative energy in your house, and we'll work to maybe eliminate the source. So please come forth with anything that you might have, and Amanda and I would be more than happy to look into it for you and go from there. Thank you.
All right.
Amanda, thank you for a good evening and a good talk, and we'll be back soon. We've got some investigations coming up, so I'm going to let you do the closing and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Please send in any stories you have on the shadow people with a drawing, and to mothmanpodcast@gmail.com. mothmanpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you guys. Good night.